this intimate connection between the people at the bleeding edge of crypto and the Muslim world. They have a very deep appreciation of Islam and the Muslim world in a way that people who live in America and Europe don't understand.
Why is that?
A lot of these top traders who are not Muslim, they make a lot of money. They meet some Muslim who say, look, there's something more than all this money. Best example, he made a lot of money and then he went to jail. He discovered Islam in jail.
Really?
Fell in love with Islam and the Quran. He took a picture in front of the mosque in Abu Dhabi.
The crypto bro thing to do. What if he told you that one of the most ambitious Islamic finance projects in the world isn't being built in the Middle East, but right out of the United States?
Meet Tariq, co-founder of Inshallah Network. Their mission, rebuild the $4 trillion Islamic finance industry on crypto rail.
People who are in the front edge of crypto love saying Inshallah. It's an expression of hope.
What do you say about people who say Bitcoin is haram?
There's a gap of scholars. Just sit with them for 30 minutes, explain Bitcoin. They say, yeah, there's no.
Inshallah Network pioneering in a halal, decentralized, interest-free financial system with zero compromise on Islamic values.
Islamic finance is just a copycat of conventional.
People have come to a conclusion that Islamic finance is a scam. It's just a communication problem. This is $10 trillion market and can change the Muslim world and the non-Muslim world.
This is the halal crypto revolution. This is beyond possible.
What if he told you that one of the most ambitious Islamic finance projects in the world isn't being built in the Middle East, not being built in South Asia, not even Africa, but right out of the United States, and it's called Inshallah Network? Our guest today is Tariq Patanam, the visionary co-founder of Inshallah, a Web3 native platform rebuilding the $4 trillion Islamic finance industry on crypto rails. Tariq is here to shake up what you think you know about Web3 and Muslim identity. Let's dive in. Tariq, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rafi.
So for someone who's never heard of Inshallah Network, how would you describe it to them?
So Inshallah is zero interest, decentralized finance, or as it's commonly known, DeFi. For people who haven't heard of DeFi, DeFi is essentially what they're trying to do is take everything that's been built up in traditional finance over the past 200, 300 years, since you can say the joint stock company, and put it in a way and build it in a way that's not controlled by any one party. And it draws its inspiration from, as everyone knows, Bitcoin. And but this is taking the whole financial system on chain. And part of this whole financial system is the financial system for Muslims. And as this system is being built in a permissionless way, in a way that's not controlled by anyone, we're trying to build this place within this giant marketplace for Muslims to have their space as well. So that's what I would say Inshallah is. It's zero interest, halal, decentralized finance.
And what do you say about people? We get this a lot, but on just one occasion, I get to say it to someone else. What do you say about people who say Bitcoin is haram?
That's a great question. We get this question a lot. We debate people a lot. Interestingly, now we also get a second question, which is people who say Bitcoin is halal, but everything else beyond Bitcoin is haram. There's more questions to be had, but I think, usually I actually don't, I've learned to actually not debate those people. Unless they're doing it in good faith, because everyone comes around. Everyone comes around. They either come around because they have a conversation with a friend. They learn that even if you were to say it's not the perfect system, it's a system way better than what we have today with fiat and centralized money. And some people just come around when they see the price going up. So
I want to ask you about Inshallah. And I'm really intrigued by the name. So for those of us who don't know what Inshallah means, the literal meaning is God willing, but it's a multifaceted word. It can mean many things in different situations. So, interestingly, when somebody comes to Dubai, one of the first words that they pick up is Inshallah. And for example, if the context is, hey, are you going to be on time tomorrow? Yes, Inshallah. That could mean a maybe.
Exactly.
Or if you say, yeah, I'm going to meet you next week, Inshallah, that could even mean a no or a yes. So how did you come up with the name? What was your thinking behind Inshallah Network?
I'll tell you, actually, we didn't come up with the name. It was actually our one of our investors, and most of them are non-Muslim. And when we said we were going to do this, like we're going to build this product, they're like, "Okay, you guys got to name yourselves Inshallah." And we're like, I don't know, because as Muslims we have the context. Like, I don't know how that's going to come across. They're like, "No, you guys are going to name Inshallah." And this was, by the way, after Dune, one of the Dune movies came out. For those of people who don't know Dune, it's like this. It was originally a book, a sci-fi book written in the 70s, and now it just recently made it into 2 movies. Amazing movie. Go see it. And it has a lot of Islamic themes in it, though it has nothing to do with Muslim country. It's in the future. But they talk about random things like the Mahdi. And so in this context, like everyone was like in love with these different Islamic concepts, right? And there's even a bunch of memes about lisan al-ghaib, right? Especially in crypto, right? People would be like, "Oh, how's the price going up of this coin?" They'd be like, lisan al-ghaib, which means like the tongue of the unseen, right? So in that context, they're like, "You have to be Inshallah." And we're like, I don't know. It's like, no, Inshallah is the name. You guys don't understand. It's the name. And as we started delving more, because our product we have a multifaceted product. On one side, it's for what's known in crypto as degens. It's kind of a satirical name for people who are in the very front edge of crypto. And so these people love saying Inshallah. They love saying, man, I just bought this token. The price is going to go up, Inshallah. And for them, it's an expression of hope. It's an expression of like something that's a power greater than themselves. And there's a lot of people in crypto, like these people on the bleeding edge of crypto that become very interested in Islam, very interested. And maybe they're Muslim, maybe they're not Muslim. But a lot of these top traders, you'll see them saying Alhamdulillah. You'll see them saying Inshallah.
Why is that though? I'm curious.
I think it's a lot of them, the circles are very close and a lot of them are Muslim, right? And the people who are not Muslim, they make a lot of money and they don't know what to do with the money. They don't know what to do with themselves. They run into a lot of issues. And they come out to places like Dubai and they meet people, maybe beautiful people like Rafi, like Saad, and they're like, wow, these people, they have something that I don't have, even though I have $1 million gajillion, So I can have whatever I want. I can have a Lamborghini, drive up to Burj Dubai,
But there's a void.
Anything they want, but they're still not happy. And so a lot of these big traders, then they meet some Muslim who's like, look, there's something more than all this money. It's $1 billion gajillion. And they're like, yeah, I appreciate that. So there was, he's not the best example, but he's a very well-known example. What's the name? Suzu of 3 Arrows Capital. 3 Arrows Capital, very infamous guy, but, not delving into the details, but he made a lot of money. And then he went to jail and, he talks about this on a podcast, actually. And he discovered Islam in jail.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about this, man.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened then?
Like a friend told him about the Quran and he just started reading the Quran in
I was
jail.
in jail in what? Montenegro or
I
something?
think it was Singapore. Actually.
Singapore, okay.
Yeah. And he's like, I just fell in love with Islam and the Quran and now he he took a picture in front of the mosque in Abu Dhabi, right?
It's a crypto bro thing to do.
Yeah, very crypto bro thing. So there is this intimate connection between the people at the bleeding edge of crypto and the Muslim world. And I think most recently we saw that with CZ. He's out here in Dubai. He's went to Pakistan. They have this intimate understanding of the Muslim world and Muslims. And even if they don't become Muslim themselves, They have a very deep appreciation of Islam in the Muslim world in a way that I think a lot of people who just live in America and Europe don't understand.
Yeah. Coming back to the name, so inshallah, you went with that name. Did you ever regret that?
We have one of two reactions when we meet people. They say, what's your name? What's the name of your company? And I'm like, okay, here goes. They're going to say something. So I say, inshallah. And they're either like, whoa, that's an amazing name. That's like the perfect name for you guys. And they're like, man, I wish I had a company name like that, And they're just like, they're not Muslim, by the way. The reaction that we hear this most from are people who are not Muslim. People who are at, like you said, the bleeding edge of crypto. Because everyone at the bleeding edge of crypto knows what inshallah is. On the other hand, we've had a reaction from the more institutional, like traditional Islamic finance people. They're like, that's too Muslim of a name. We might need you to change your name if you want.
But that reaction comes from Muslims, you're saying?
Interestingly, yes. Yeah. The Muslims will say, change your name. And the non-Muslims will be like, that's the perfect name, And I will tell you I don't want to say it on camera, but there are crazy things that people have said that I would not even say publicly, but non-Muslims have said, just like when they're so hyped about our company.
Let's talk a bit about Islamic finance. How big is this opportunity really?
Massive. Absolutely massive. If you're thinking about traditional Islamic finance, that's like some estimates say 1 trillion, some estimates say 4 trillion, some say more than that, like 10 trillion. But as we said in the beginning of the podcast, that's very underselling it. Because you meet so many people, so many Muslims who don't care about Islamic finance because of the very issues that we talked about. Because they just like, a lot of serious Muslims are like, this is just a scam.
But also, Islamic finance isn't necessarily just for Muslims, is it?
That's true. No, it's not. And we've met a lot of people. Okay, first of all, going back to what Rafi said, it's a very Abrahamic religion thing. It was a central tenet of the church up until, 15th, 16th century when the Medici family came up with this loophole where, interest is banned in Christianity. But they came up with this loophole that basically said, no, this is not interest. You just combined 3 different contracts and it's not interest. They found other loopholes like, hey, if we have people of other faiths sell us this, they do the dirty work. And to us, it's okay. And now, of course, if you look at the majority of what's considered the Christian world, they don't care about interest. But I've talked to many individual people that are strong Catholics, that are strong, especially the Catholics, I feel like, because they're still tied to the church teaching. But even a lot of Protestants, they will say like, yeah, I never feel comfortable with the whole interest thing. And I love what you guys are doing. And I hope you can bring it to the Christian world as well. Jews, it goes without saying, they have done a better job of not doing interest, at least within their community. And so this is and then outside of those Abrahamic religions, people have understood that Islamic finance is, if implemented correctly, is a much more stable system, sustainable system, equal system of profiting. You don't get these wild swings that you saw with 2008 recession. You don't get these people, the most marginalized people in society.
You also don't get to obscenely rich.
Yeah.
Who then no longer take risk in society.
Exactly. Because you don't get to make money off of money.
Exactly.
That's one of the central tenets.
That's it. Money cannot beget money.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Meaning that if you already have a bunch of money, it's not fair for you to just make money because you have a bunch of. You have to take the risk, put it back in the economy, and give everyone a chance, right?
Yeah. Many of us live well today, right? But if you look at the people, the 90% of people in the world I'm not talking about Muslims and non-Muslims. I'm not talking about Dubai and Pakistan. I'm talking about in America, in England, in Egypt, wherever you name it. In America, there are people on the streets. In America, there are people who have to work 3 jobs and still are dirt poor. Why is that? It's because they don't get to make money off of money, right? They don't get to have a savings account at the very least that gives them 3, 4, 5% returns.
And there's even further negative external, and they don't get to. Then the obscenely rich, who no longer have to take risk, can then influence government to make it even more difficult for them. And that's where crypto comes in, because then people are like, okay, I got to catch up 10 years of wealth I got to make in 1 month. And then that's where we get to where we are today.
And it's a crazy system, right? And there are a lot of good YouTubers out there, good content creators talking about this. Most of them non-Muslim, actually. When you get to the crazy rich, they are doing things that even the medium or upper middle class or lower rich class can't even imagine, right? They are purposefully taking loans and being perpetually in debt, right?
You don't have to pay taxes then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't pay taxes.
And that doesn't trickle back down to society.
Exactly. And they know ways that they can take a 3, 4% interest loan and make 10, 15% returns again and again and again. And so that's what crypto is about. And that's what Islamic finance is very tied into, that ethos of, no, there's a better way to do this. And there's a way to share wealth creation together.
I'd love to understand a bit of your leadership style. When you're thinking about making decisions, for example, how much of a role does faith have to play in that? Or do you try and keep business and faith separate?
It's 100% tied together. As for how you tie it together, that's a question that every, not just leader, but every person that works in the modern world has to figure out for themselves. I'm just talking about the very basics, like, do you shake hands with the opposite gender? That's something that every person that works in corporate world, that works in the business world, that works as an entrepreneur has to figure out, and how they're going to navigate that. All the way to how do you run your organization? How are you a leader? The standard of leadership, if we're really trying to make a better economic system, the standard of leadership is the first people who made that better economic system. And that was 1400 years ago. I'll delve into a little bit of an Islamic story for those of us who don't know, but I think it's a story that brings tears to anyone's eyes if they heard it. The Byzantines, the Romans sent an envoy to the Muslims. They were trying to find the leader of the Muslims. That envoy came to Medina, which was the capital at the time. He was looking for the palace. He's like, every country I go to has a palace. Where's this presidential palace of the Muslims? They're like, what palace? They're like, yeah, no, I'm looking for the leader. They say, Omar is a leader, the Emir, the emperor. And they say, oh, Omar, yeah, he's just like, he's sleeping under the tree over there. And he goes and finds him, and he's just like sleeping under a tree, And these clothes that he only has 2 pairs of clothes, or 1 pair of clothes, it said, it has holes in it. And he said, this is the leader of all the Muslims. That's like a superpower now, on par with at that time was the Persians and the Romans. And he said, now I understand why, he's giving trouble. This is a superpower. If this is their leader, he doesn't care about the power. He doesn't care about the wealth. He doesn't care about the position. For every Muslim leader, that's what you're trying to emulate. At least myself, I'm very far from that. I'm enjoying the nice 5-star hotel. I'm enjoying the bougie lattes, my Spanish latte that I drink every morning.
But is that what you're aspiring towards?
100%. It's not about you. It's not about, oh, I am the CEO, I am the founder. It's about what you can do for the world, what you can do for your Muslims and non-Muslims. It's down to the smallest detail. Am I being just to my employees? Am I being just to my fellow co-founders, to my partners, to the customers we're serving? That's what it's about.
A leader is a servant. As simple as that.
100%. That's beautifully said.
One thing I've heard about you, Tariq, is that you only hire A players on your team. Now, every leader wants to do that, but actually doing that is hard to do. How do you do it?
An A player is anyone who's better than us at what they do. I think that's how we define it, right? Just recently, we brought on one of our smart contract engineers. I'll give him a shout out, Sabir Bhai, amazing brother and very young guy. Maybe he's like in his 20s. And that's what we were worried about, young 20s. We're like, he's so young. He doesn't have he hasn't done this big corporate job yet. But Amar is my co-founder. I basically told him, look, we're only bringing him on if he's better than you at engineering. And I know I'm an engineer myself. And Amar, I know he's like what I'd call a beast engineer, 10x engineer. So I was like, if he's better than you, then we're hiring him. And if he's not, then I'm sorry. That's what I would say. Whoever's better than us at what we're hiring them for, that's an A player.
I like that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
But it's also really, really hard to do. So where do you get those A players?
Hiring has not been a huge challenge. And the reason is because when people hear about the mission that we have and what we're trying to build, a company that imbibes the Islamic ethos, but is also trying to be a profitable, real startup, we get a lot of people knocking on our door. Our first hire, who is Dr. Fuda, the genius behind what we're doing. I mean, he's kind of too genius to be on our team.
Sounds like an A player.
Yeah, we're like, you sure want to be with us? Because he did his PhD in like quantum mechanics or something, quantum computing. Then he was the head of research at multiple crypto orgs, most recently Alliance, which is a top crypto accelerator. And I was like, yeah, it's like, it seems kind of a downgrade to come from Alliance to our startup. But he was just like, no, I love what you guys are doing. And I really want to support this mission.
And we hear that a lot. So if you talk to the folks at Facet and you ask them, why are you here? 90% of the time, they talk about the mission.
Exactly, right? Because you can work for a lot of other crypto companies. I'm sure like, Saad, he mentioned you're the top student in Pakistan.
Highly coveted.
I'm sure like you had people knocking on your door and you did your MBA, Forbes 500 companies knocking on your door. You could probably now go work for another top crypto company. But mission is a very strong hiring point. It even applies to things that are not about Islamic ethos. But if you look at companies like Tesla, SpaceX, before
the mission crumbled.
before the mission crumbled, right? And it seemed the mission was getting fuddled with what's going on at the White House. But I would ask like some of my friends, they're like working 80-hour weeks. They're getting paid $60K, which not to be insensitive, but in Silicon Valley is very little. And these guys can go make $200, $300K somewhere else. And I'd ask, why are you there? They're like, the mission.
And I'm here because we're creating a dent in the universe. That's why I'm here.
Love that.
Yeah, mashallah.
I enjoy asking someone else for a change, which is that then there's a group of people, because I would say we are dealing with the question of, is Bitcoin even halal or haram? It's like when Bezos was being asked, what is the internet when he's trying to sell Amazon? And then the second question we get that is tied to, is Bitcoin haram, is, Islamic finance is just a copycat of, conventional. So what do you say to that?
Yes and no. I think that might require a whole nother podcast to go into the history.
No, please, I would love to get I'm with you, but
Yes.
These are the two questions that we get.
Yeah.
So already we're starting at basement versus ground level.
Yeah.
When we do businesses like ourselves.
Exactly. Right. I think there's a whole class of people that are critiquing from all sides. And the difficulty as builders, as I'm sure Rafi and Saad, is you're trying to put something out positive in the world. But there's a lot of people that are negative and trying to tear that down, right? And you say, hey, I can work with you. I can make adjustments. Tell me, what's your feedback? But there's certain people who just want to keep tearing it down no matter what you're trying to build. But those people aside, Islamic finance, you have the traditional Islamic finance. And we were talking about this before the podcast, right? The kind you would study in Azhar, in Medina, in Mauritania, in Pakistan, in Benuria, right? And that has existed for 1,000+ years. And it's a very complex, well thought out system. Then you have the modern Islamic finance, which I would agree to an extent. You have to operate within this world of conventional finance because that's what's dominated the world. And I would say that the scholars and many sincere builders have done their best possible effort to build something in this system that is from the ground up, is built on interest. I'll just say that transparently. From the ground up, it's built on interest. But that doesn't mean you abandon everything and just say, whatever, Muslims are going to do everything haram. It's okay. Just take interest, do whatever you want. Scholars and sincere builders did their best possible effort to build within this system. And I think it started, in the 1940s and 1960s. Some say in Malaysia, some say in Egypt. But now I think with Bitcoin, with crypto, there's a chance that we don't have to build within the system. We can actually build our own system and achieve things that, with the help of these scholars that put their sincere effort, achieve things that weren't achievable in conventional finance.
Look, I mean, I want to just really unpack that a bit more, because there's a lot here. And I think to take a kind of a global view and a historic view, pretty much all Abrahamic faiths at one point or another has banned interest, right? And from that perspective, the effort that our scholars have done in the modern era to revive the Abrahamic tradition of no interest has been phenomenal, right? So from that macro view, it's been phenomenal. And I think it's actually underappreciated in the global sense that what Muslims have revived from an Abrahamic tradition perspective. That's number one. But I think number two, from a micro perspective, to be very honest, and we've brought this up in this show before, recent, quote unquote, advancements by Sharia scholars in this space has been disappointing. And I think this goes back to the previous question on is why do we get the question, is Bitcoin haram? Because to be honest, we have to, this is, you're a student of the deen. We're all students of the deen. We have to hold each other accountable to a certain degree. And the reason we're getting that question is that our scholars in this complex era don't have the necessary tools to make the call. So that means some scholars have to generate those necessary tools. So as you study in Azhar, there's an onus on yourself, there's an onus on all students to say, you know what, Tariq is going down this path as a DeFi entrepreneur, as a student of knowledge. We need people like yourself to unpack why Bitcoin is halal. So we don't even get the question. But I think the point I want to make, and the question here is, we must ask more from our Sharia scholars. Our Sharia scholars in the modern Islamic finance recently have become complacent to rubber stamping, which is why we get the sister question that Islamic finance looks like conventional finance. I don't see a difference. Because now, and here's the question, now in this era of permissionless finance where we can rewrite the rules, if we go down the path of rubber stamping Bitcoin or rubber stamping Ethereum or rubber stamping DeFi, then we've made the same mistake again. So what is your take on how we can modernize Islamic finance in this era, but with the fulcrum point being the change necessary among Sharia scholars in this space?
Man, you guys ask big questions. MashaAllah. I will start first, just one correction. I'm not a student in Azhar, but with scholars around Azhar, and maybe one day we'll earn that pedigree. But in terms of how do we modernize Islamic finance, there's a bunch of different things, and it's going to take a lot of discussion between us, between Sharia scholars who are willing to listen. And because I'm also studying the religion from different scholars, I've had the chance to sit down and discuss with many scholars in Saudi Arabia, from Pakistan, from Egypt, from Algeria, from a bunch of places, Turkey. And there's a lot of scholars that I'll say are willing to listen. But the number one thing is there's a gap between them. So you have these sincere scholars, these bastions of knowledge, I would say, that are sitting somewhere like in Konya, Turkey, that are sitting somewhere like in Karachi, or maybe not even in the main city of Karachi, but in like some town in Sindh, right? In the southern parts of Algeria. And I've talked to them. And many of them, I just sit with them for 30 minutes, an hour, explain Bitcoin. And they say, yeah, it's halal. There's no problem. So I think it's actually just a one sense, it's just a communication problem. And the second sense, I also think it's a communication problem with people. And this is why I think it's an amazing effort that you guys are doing here with the podcast. People have different understandings of what Islamic finance is. People have been burnt by Islamic finance. People have sometimes come to a conclusion that Islamic finance is a scam. And that has turned them off from everything. It's turned them off from scholars.
Sometimes the religion itself, to be honest with you.
The religion, it's turned them off from companies like ours, right? And so I think that's a second communication issue. And for that, it's going to take a lot of effort. I don't know how it's going to, be solved overnight. But you guys are doing this podcast. We have gone into masjids literally before and said, let us just explain why crypto could be good for Muslims.
What kind of reaction do you get when you do that?
All kinds of reactions. Some are very interested. They want to learn. They want to buy crypto right away. And I said, they're like, give me all the tokens that we should buy. I'm like, I think you should understand first, maybe just buy some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, Solana. And some have come up and said, literally, no, how can you say this? You are ruining the Muslim Ummah. They need to just be in the dollar. The dollar is the best currency.
Some scholars say Bitcoin, a very famous scholar that both you and I know has said Bitcoin is haram because it's not backed by government. When the reality is that governments can no longer be trusted. Governments are made of people, and people at these positions aren't always ones to be trusted, right?
Exactly.
But that's the irony of the situation. Yeah.
That is the irony. And that gets down another rabbit hole as well, right? Which is, how do you trust scholars? Which scholars do you trust? And I'm a big advocate for every person in this modern day and age should have a minimum level of competency.
To have the tools to decipher, basic tools, absolutely.
And I think you can appreciate that as well because you've been studying the religion as well for a long time. It doesn't take more than 30 minutes to an hour to learn what is basic Islamic finance. And I'm talking about the traditional one. What are the elements of a contract? What is the definition of riba? What is the definition of gharar?
These three pillars of Islamic finance. It's not very complex. But what people miss is that these are the three pillars. And this is where all of humanity would benefit if we adopted these three pillars.
I'm going down another rabbit hole now, but I think I'm talking now to the Muslim community, underestimate the value of Islamic finance. One of our scholars, Sheikh Farrukh Habib, he is also kind of a student of Mufti Taqi Usmani, and he told him once that to think about a issue in Islamic finance, for me, I have a greater need to it than going to the restroom. Because he's just like, if I can solve one issue for Muslims and save them from $10, $100, $1,000 of riba, then for me, that's one of the best things in the world. And we have our disagreements with Mufti Taqi because, he doesn't approve of Bitcoin as of today. But I respect that statement so much. And I think a lot of Muslims wouldn't understand why. Why is that important? They understand I have to pray 5 times a day. They understand, especially us Desis, we need to have zabiha, halal, cut. No, where's your halal certification? But if you're eating interest, all of that doesn't matter.
When you say that the basics of learning Islamic finance are easy, they're not that complicated. For someone who's listening to you right now, what are the resources where they can learn about this?
But I know Islamic Finance Guru, they have some courses with Mufti Faraz Adam, which is facets.
Although Sheikh Farrukh Habib was also previously facet as well.
Yes, there we go.
That's right. Yeah.
Many local communities have resources. It's worldwide, the situation is different, but I'm speaking in American context. If you're in Chicago, there are teachers. If you're in the Bay Area, there are teachers. If you're in Houston, Dallas, there are teachers.
This is the point I wanted to make because I was excited. I don't get to meet a lot of American Muslims. But, are you currently living in San Francisco? Where do you reside?
No, I actually live in Egypt.
You're living in Egypt?
Yes. Yeah.
So, obviously we have a team at Facet that lives here in Islamabad, in Jakarta. And a lot of our team has never seen what the American Muslim culture is. And quite frankly, and that's why, even this question that I'm reading right now, that this looks like it's interesting that Islamic finance, crypto plus USA. But the reality, man, is that what American Muslims have done for Islam is severely underrated, right? And you only realize that when you meet same-aged people in our Muslim countries, which is where I live, because the conscientiousness that we have brought, from the scholars that we have, from the institutions that you're mentioning, from honestly some of the best Islamic hubs in the world of Dallas or San Francisco, LA, Chicago. These are amazing hubs, man, right? These are amazing hubs. And the reason I mention this is that for us, coming from America, innovating there, the Sharia scholar and the regulations and the concepts of Islamic finance also have to be they have to be born by some of our people as well, because the exposure that we get sitting in America to DeFi, to Bitcoin, to tech, it's unfair of us to put that kind of burden in a scholar, with all due respect, right? In Konya, or in Karachi, even to a certain degree, or in Bandung in Indonesia, right? I mean, there has to be a collaborative effort. And I think part of the reason is that exposure is not there, right? So, I mean, what have you found on this? Like, how do you now that, because, when I moved abroad, obviously you value Qalam a lot more. You value Bayina a lot more. You value, where I came from, IOK, a lot more, Zaytuna a lot more, because we just don't have those resources here. And Muslims that are born and raised in some of these countries haven't seen Islam the way that we've seen Islam. Right? Do you see that?
No, 100%. And to me, it was kind of shocking at first, right? Because we have these institutes in America, but a lot of people also leave America and they come to these countries. Like I mentioned, I'm in Egypt to sit with these scholars. And again, these like bastions of knowledge, these, you can say, dons of religion, right? These people who have just immersed themselves in the tradition in a way that I would say is hard pressed to find even in America.
True. That's true.
And I think every teacher in America acknowledges that. And that's why they come out to these countries. And what's crazy is that when you come to these countries, any of them, Pakistan, Indonesia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the people, it's like there's a complete disconnect. They have no idea that these scholars exist.
Even though when we're growing up in LA, we've heard of these scholars for 10, 15, 20 years, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you'll find yourself in Karachi, you talk to a fellow 30-year-old and you'll be like, bro, one of the biggest scholars lives down the street. And he's like, what? No way.
Yeah, who's that?
Yeah, who's that? You know what I mean? But in America, we're growing up hearing these names, these legends. And it's ironic,
I go to some of these lessons. I was in Ahsa recently in eastern Saudi Arabia, visiting a sheikh. Yes. And I made the rounds. And what's amazing about Ahsa is they have all 4 madhabs there. So I made the round to each of the madhabs. And I went to a lesson, a sheikh there, and, around the world, he has thousands, tens of thousands of listeners of student knowledge. I went to his lesson, and it almost pained me to see that there were less students in his lesson than lessons that I give as like a beginner student of knowledge, I'll have like 25, 30, 40 people in my lesson. And sometimes I give for example, in Sacramento, there were like 5, 6 people in his lesson. And this, amazing scholar of knowledge. Same thing in Egypt.
Same thing in Jordan. I mean,
same thing in Jordan.
There'd be scholars sitting like my next door neighbors.
Yeah.
5 people in the lesson, but they go on Seeker's Guidance and there's like 5,000 online.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Subhan.
So it's a deeper question. How do we bridge this disconnect? But I'm learning by meeting people in the Muslim world. And I think part of the disconnect is our job, right?
That's right.
And that's, again, you guys are doing an amazing thing with the podcast. I hope to see more courses, like, hey, here, just do a basic Islamic finance course. Learn your basics of Islamic finance in 1 hour.
We do have a monthly event. It's called Invest and Connect. And the idea is that we connect with people in person and share some basics
Oh,
with
that's
them.
here in Dubai.
In Dubai and
Okay.
also in Pakistan. We're going to do a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you a short question. You give me a quick answer.
Let's do it.
I'm just
Yeah.
going to start with one side.
Go for it.
Best halal restaurant in Houston.
Oh, that's tough.
I just came from there. It's a pretty hot topic down there.
I would say it's the best in America, the best halal scene.
I have a name in mind, but I was going to see what you said.
It depends on the cuisine. Oh, in burgers, the OG is M&M. You have Bundu Khan, but that's not exclusive to Houston.
You didn't say Aga's, bro.
Interestingly enough, I've never been to Agas.
No way.
Yeah, it came up after I'd left, and every time I'd visited back, I never, just for some reason, never went to Agas.
I was in Kuala Lumpur in an elevator. I was telling someone of my parents just moved to Houston, and these Malaysian Chinese guys were like, I gotta go to Aga's. That's why I was like, I gotta ask.
Okay, I gotta go to
You got to try it out. What's one Islamic value every entrepreneur should adopt?
I would say humility. Yeah, humility. Just be willing to learn from anyone. I think even be willing to learn from a rock, right? And you'll go a far way if you have some humility.
What's the worst advice that you ever got in crypto?
Launch a token tomorrow. They're like, yeah, just launch a token and you can raise 100 million and we'll list you on OKX and Binance and whatever.
Are you launching a token?
We're not launching a token. No, just for the audience. No, we're not launching a token. Yeah.
Who's more dangerous in business, a fake visionary or an average operator?
Fake visionary, especially in crypto.
Why is that?
Because in crypto, visionaries can raise 100 million, a billion, distract a lot of people, distract VCs, distract founders, distract employees who join their company, distract the market, and distract consumers. And everyone loses. Whereas an average operator, people are just gonna be like, okay, we're not gonna invest in his business.
The damage is bigger with the fake visionary.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in crypto. A lot of scammers, unfortunately.
When you think about the next 5 years in your life, what's beyond possible for you?
Beyond possible. What do you mean by that?
Something which is going to be hard to achieve, but you want to get there.
I would say making, inshallah, the Halal DeFi ecosystem, the Halal DeFi bank of crypto, serving Muslims, serving non-Muslims, and serving people who just care about just finance.
Tariq, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Likewise.